This is Reviewer03, bringing you a new segment of videos called Plausibility Check. On today's Plausibility Check, I will examine the claim that Super Saiyan Goku and Frieza had power levels of 150 and 120 million. These numbers are taken from the Daitsen-shu, which is considered to be the official sourcebook for Dragon Ball. However, Akira Toriyama didn't write the Daitsen-shu, he only approved it. Another thing which has to be considered is the fact that canonical facts can be changed and are not written in stone. Take Star Wars for example. The second Death Star was officially stated to be 160 kilometers in diameter, until some years back the number was suddenly changed to 900 kilometers. And frankly, many of the power levels in the Daitsen-shu are just plain wrong, contradict the manga, or simply don't make any sense at all. Take Raditz. His power level is stated to be 1500, yet he pisses his pants when he sees that Piccolo's power level is 1330, or when Gohan is at 1307. This doesn't make much sense. Sure, you are worried when someone has 90% of your power, but this facial expression is beyond worried. Also, Nappa stated that his power level is close to the power level of those guys who are at 1200. And in the fight against Nappa, Piccolo is stated to have a power level of 3500, yet when he shoots an unsuspecting Nappa in the back, this has less effect than Gohan's Masenko, which had a power level of 2800. So in my opinion, Piccolo was at 2500, not 3500. And Krillin is stated to have a power level of 1770, yet when he arrives on Namek his power level is only at 1500. All these contradictions show that the Daitsen-shu is unreliable as a power level source and should not be taken seriously. Next we have the Kaioken. For some reason people believe that it is an exact multiplier of one's power level, although there is not much support for this claim. We know that Goku's base power level while fighting Vegeta was at 8000, and the Daitsen-shu claims that a fourfold Kaioken did increase his power level to 32,000. However, at this moment he was also firing a Kamehameha, which as can be seen in the fight with Raditz, increases one's power level dramatically. Also, it is quite unlikely that Goku was anywhere close to 32,000, or otherwise Vegeta with his power level of 18,000 would have been atomized, because minor power level differences are already enough to overwhelm an enemy. Take Zarbon and Dodoria. According to the Daitsen-shu, their power levels were 22 and 23,000, yet Vegeta with a power level of 24,000 made short work of Dodoria, and had only slightly more trouble with Zarbon. In my opinion, both Zarbon's and Dodoria's power levels were lower by 1 or 2,000, but this doesn't change the fact that a power level difference of just 10% can be enormous. What I'm getting at is this. According to the Daitsen-shu, Frieza had a power level of 60 million while at 50% of his power. Goku's base was at 3 million, and if the Kaioken does indeed multiply one's power level by an exact margin, that would mean that Goku while fighting with the tenfold Kaioken was at 30 million. Now, it is quite inconceivable that Goku with a power level of 30 million could hold out against a Frieza who was at 60 million, while Zarbon and Dodoria couldn't do much against Vegeta despite the fact that their power level difference was only 1 or 2,000. Yet another fact which disputes the claim that Frieza and Goku had power levels of 150 and 120 million is the following. At some point, Frieza revealed that he had been using only a fraction of his power, and that he would increase his power to 50% to crush Goku. Now the question arises, how much percent of his power had Frieza been using until that moment? It certainly wasn't 1% as stated in the English dub, because no one jumps from 1 to 50% of his power. Even a jump from 10 to 50% is already far stretched. But let's just assume that Frieza was at 1/10 of his power. 100% of his power would have been 12 or 30 million, far from the 120 million claimed by the Daitsen-shu. The last and probably most convincing point against Goku's and Frieza's Daitsen-shu power levels are the androids and Piccolo. Because if Frieza's power level was indeed 120 million, then the androids were at least somewhere around 180 million. Now, the problem with this is the following. Goku was unable to defeat 19, and even Vegeta lost most of his energy in doing so. So if the androids were at 180 million, then both Super Saiyans were somewhere around 200 million. And since according to the Daitsen-shu, a Super Saiyan transformation increases one's power 50-fold, that would mean that after years of training, Goku's base power level increased from some 3 to 4 million, and Vegeta's slightly more, from some 2 to 4 million. And this is where Piccolo comes in. His last known power level was somewhere around 1.5 million, since he was stronger than Frieza in his second form. Yet by the time of the Android Saga, he was stronger than 20. Now if Frieza really was at 120 million, and the androids were stronger than Frieza, then this would mean that Piccolo increases power level from some 1.5 million to some 180 million, while both Goku and Vegeta only advanced by some 1 or 2 million. All of this indicates that both Frieza's and Goku's power levels were far below 100 million, and might have been overstated by a factor of 10 in the Daitsen Shu.